It was a quiet night when a woman suddenly felt that the man lying beside her might not be her real husband because her real husband never snored, never asked to cuddle before sleeping, and was always serious. Yet tonight, this man was even washing the dishes. That's when her suspicion deepened. And she was right because her real husband had died in a car accident just a day earlier. Coincidentally, the man he collided with also had the same name, but that man had only suffered a minor injury. But when the angels who take souls came to the hospital, they mistakenly took the other man's soul. Later, when they realized the mistake and sent his soul back, they found that his real body had already been burned. Out of guilt, the angel placed his soul into the body of the rich man, who had the same name and was being prepared for his funeral. When that rich man suddenly woke up, everyone was shocked. That man, whose real name was Cheol-hoon, was a big bank manager who used to speak strictly to both his staff and wife. His wife Ye-jin was tired of his cold life, but now another soul had entered that body, a fun-loving, emotional, and loving small restaurant chef, a man who always lived happily with his family. When the media saw that Cheol-hoon had woken up, the news channels created chaos. Doctors couldn't understand what was happening. That new man, when he looked at the people around him, became confused. When he saw his face in the mirror, he realized something was wrong. He called his real wife Miran, but she thought it was a prank and scolded him before hanging up. Then one of his old friends came to the hospital who couldn't recognize him. The new man tried to leave the hospital and go back home, but a beautiful and rich wife appeared in front of him who said, "Rest first." To show that he was completely fine, he performed a fun dance, which shocked his wife even more. She thought, is he really the same angry husband? With his friend's help, he left the hospital and reached his old home. There, his wife Miran was coming out with a dustbin. When he met her, he told her the truth and mentioned those things that only a husband and wife would know. But Miran thought he was a creepy person. Even his friend couldn't believe that he was the same Cheol-hoon who always stayed serious. Later, when he returned to the rich family's house, his new wife and 2 kids were in front of him. Confused, he went to the bathroom and cried loudly. When he came out after showering, that wife, Yari, came in wearing a nightdress and got shocked after seeing another woman's old lingerie in the cupboard. The family thought that Cheol-hoon was possessed by a spirit, so they called a priest. But the poor thing fell down herself. A soul collector sitting on a tree got tired of watching everything because now inside, that man was a sweet, emotional man from the neighborhood whose dream was to run a small restaurant. And after his death, even the shop had closed down and his family had fallen into debt. Then, with a heavy heart, he went back and asked Cheol-hoon's rich mother for money. She, without any hesitation, gave him 1 crore cash in hand. Grandpa then disguised himself as a delivery boy and sent this money in a parcel to his real wife, Miran. When she and her family opened the packet, they were left stunned seeing so much cash. Maybe they had never seen this much money in their life. He also wrote a small note in which it was written, "If you ever face trouble, do contact on this number." While doing all this, he couldn't stop his tears. Even though he was so close to his own family, he couldn't tell them who he really was. But as soon as he returned to Cheol-hoon's house that night, a new problem arose. Cheol-hoon's mistress called, and at that very moment, his wife Ye-jin entered with fruits. Seeing the expression on his face, she understood everything. "Do you know this girl? Do you remember?" That's when he realized Cheol-hoon had a relationship with another woman too. And Ye-jin was already going to divorce Cheol-hoon. He was surrounded by so much confusion. The next day, when he reached the office, a girl tightly hugged him, which made him feel awkward, and he quickly ran away. That girl shouted, "So you turned out to be quite a naughty guy." At night, when Ye-jin came with medicine and was about to leave, he lovingly stopped her. "I'm seeing another woman." Then he went to church and poured his heart out to a father. "I've changed. My body. Everything has changed." But the father simply thought he wasn't taking his medicine. Then he went to Cheol-hoon's only friend Aswai, and suddenly he remembered his father. He thought, "Father will surely believe him." He took Aswai and went to his father's house. As soon as he appeared in front of him, he said, "I am your son," and even recalled all old memories. But against his hopes, his father slapped him hard. "Have you gone mad too?" Now what could the poor guy do? So the next day he called his daughter as a friend and met her. He fed her favorite pizza. In conversation, he found out Miran had to work in a mall out of compulsion, and father was still working at a construction site at night. Hearing this, his heart broke. He told his daughter, "Mom and I don't want you to do all this work." But when he returned to Cheol-hoon's house, one more tension was waiting. It was found out Cheol-hoon liked pineapple a lot, but he didn't even touch pineapple. Ye-jin started getting suspicious again. This can't be Cheol-hoon, but after a while she convinced herself, "No, this is just my imagination." But Grandpa's heart was still not at peace. But the biggest challenge was yet to come. When he reached the office, he couldn't understand what was going on. Everyone was standing in line to welcome him, and he was greeting each of them with folded hands. Everyone started thinking, is this really the same old angry boss? I don't know anything. We'll all work together. His assistant was shaken. She thought the boss was acting. She told the team, "This time something big is going to happen." The vice president immediately went inside to report, but Cheol-hoon said, "See for yourself what you want to do. Think for yourself what to do. Decide on your own." Grandpa Yunt was just sitting in a corner, completely confused because he really didn't know anything. When Grandpa finally understood what his actual role in the company was, he picked up a book, and surprisingly, despite never going to school, he was able to understand every single line in that book. Was this a sign that Cheol-hoon's real memories weren't gone, just hidden? Just then, his secretary entered the room and informed him that he needed to respond to an international call. Grandpa nervously picked up the phone, but as soon as he heard fluent English on the line, he got scared at first, but then realized that that he could clearly understand everything, and he was even responding fluently in English. But the next problem was the login password to the bank system. He couldn't remember anything. That's when the head president called, asking how his health was. Grandpa casually said, "I've forgotten the password." But to his shock, the president immediately told him the password. He started thinking, how does he know my private password? Then Grandpa thought, let's leave for home early today. But just as he was about to leave the office, he started asking people, whom do you have to ask for leave? Everyone was shocked again. Thankfully, his security guard friend Oswai arrived and gave him a hint. Boss, you're the one who decides everything. While leaving, Grandpa bowed to everyone and apologized. As soon as he left, the staff thought, great, we'll get to go home early today. But just a few minutes later, Grandpa returned and said, I remembered something. If your work is done, go home. See you tomorrow. Now everyone was tense again, thinking maybe the boss was testing them, and they all got back to work at their desks. Meanwhile, the one causing all this chaos, the underworld messenger, finally received help. A powerful being arrived, named Cat Guardian, who had thousands of different personalities inside him. He said, I'll stay here until this poor man returns to his real home. Then the two of them went to the library, where Grandpa looked a bit worried. Just then, Cat Guardian changed form and transformed into a beautiful woman, trying to test Grandpa. And as soon as he saw Grandpa's slightly naughty gaze, he understood that Cheol-hoon's original character was still hidden inside, and that no matter how innocent this man appeared, deep down, he was still the same. He thought, after getting so much beauty and intelligence, will this man ever return to his old simple life and his wife? That night, Grandpa saw that Ye-jin hadn't gone to bed yet. She was sitting in the hall, waiting for someone. When asked, she said, our son has gone on a treasure hunt with his friends. Grandpa smiled and said, don't worry, that's how boys grow up. Ye-jin was surprised, you're not scolding me today? And then he looked at her lovingly and said, a mother didn't raise you alone. In the middle of the night, Grandpa saw Ye-jin sleeping on the sofa. He quietly went inside, brought a blanket, and gently covered her with love. For the first time, after so many years of marriage, Ye-jin felt that her husband actually cared for her. In that moment, she truly melted from within. Grandpa always helped Miran's family without any conditions. That's why Miran called him one day, and because she wanted to understand, why did a bank manager wearing hospital clothes come to our house? And why did he call me his wife? Grandpa couldn't say anything, so he lied. I was sick, had some confusion in my mind. Miran thought maybe he was a mental patient. Then she asked, what connection could he have with my husband? Then Grandpa made up another story. We both once went to buy a lottery ticket together. When the prize came, I ran off with the money. But when I heard you died in an accident, I felt guilty, so I came to return the money. Miran also shared her feelings, that she missed her husband a lot. An awkward line came out of Grandpa's mouth. Seems like this manager's illness is very deep. Even after returning to the office, Grandpa's mind was stuck on his real family. Then a teacher called from school. He was informed that Cheol-hoon's son was being bullied. At first, Grandpa was uninterested, but when he heard that the girl hitting his son was none other than Grandpa's own daughter, his face turned pale. Actually, Cheol-hoon's son had written something rude on Grandpa's daughter's locker, which made her angry and she hit him. But without thinking, Grandpa placed the entire blame on his own son, just to protect his daughter. Seeing this, even Ye-jin was shocked. This man is scolding his own son, but protecting another girl? Later on, Grandpa's daughter also began feeling an emotional connection to him, despite being strangers, because everything he said reminded her of her dead father. Ye-jin grew even more confused. This man was so careless just yesterday that when I said our son hadn't come home for 2 days, he didn't care at all. And now he's so emotional about someone else's daughter. The pain and confusion inside her kept growing. At this moment, Grandpa realized that his mind was starting to adopt some of the habits of this new body. And most surprisingly, Cheol-hoon's original personality was also slowly waking up. The next day, to fulfill her insurance target, Miran thought she'd sell a policy to Cheol-hoon's friend. But as soon as she started filling out the form, Grandpa unconsciously spoke his ID number. And Miran was shocked because that was her husband's number. Then she noticed in that office, there was also the same plant that her husband loved the most. After that, when she checked the database, the record said that the man had been in an accident, and the date was exactly the same, the day Miran's husband had his accident. When Miran was watching an interview on TV and recognized a small habit in that man, something only her husband did, she was completely shocked. She remembered that on the day of her husband's accident, this man had come to meet her. Could he really be her returned husband? That night, when Ye-jin was drying her hair after a shower, Grandpa looked at her and got lost in her beauty for a moment. When Ye-jin saw him looking, she blushed and immediately hid under the blanket. A small compliment from Grandpa made Ye-jin blush too. Then the two of them, lying on the same bed, started talking about their old moments. Their first movie, first kiss, all the memories became fresh again. Curious, Grandpa asked, do you really care for me this much? To bring back his memories, Ye-jin took him to all the places where they had their first date. But in Grandpa's mind, only the moments spent with Miran kept appearing. Cheol-hoon's real memories weren't coming to his mind at all. Actually, Ye-jin's real husband had died in a car accident, but because Grandpa's name was also Cheol-hoon, the angel from the underworld mistakenly took Grandpa's life, even though he was just a normal man. When they realized the mistake, his soul was sent back into Cheol-hoon's body. One day when Ye-jin came home from work, she had specially dressed up. She had planned a romantic dinner. She wanted to bring a little warmth back into their relationship. But when she came home and saw that Grandpa didn't even respond, her heart sank a little. While cleaning Grandpa's study room, she found a box filled with things that Cheol-hoon never used. There was also a notebook filled with detailed notes about different types of radishes. Seeing all this, this, Hyejin felt a bit strange, but she couldn't understand that the man in front of her was actually a completely different person. Meanwhile, Grandpa secretly went to meet Miran, because now even Miran had started to suspect that this man might actually be her dead husband. To confirm her doubts, Miran took him to the small restaurant that her husband used to run. When Grandpa reacted to that place with full emotion, Miran couldn't hold back and finally asked, "Is it really you?" But Grandpa was stuck between two lives. He denied his identity, because if he spoke the truth, it would be difficult for both families to accept it. But Miran didn't give up. She brought Grandpa to her home, where he instinctively told her father, "Please don't work so hard." When they saw that Grandpa knew even the smallest details about their home, everyone was shocked. But Grandpa still kept his real identity hidden. Still, Miran didn't stop. She decided to meet Cheol-hoon's mother. When she talked to her, the mother's responses only strengthened her doubt. Her heart became emotional, as if she was convinced that her husband had truly returned and was standing in front of her. After the conversation, she quietly left. But little did she know, Grandpa had started to feel a deep connection with Cheol-hoon's body, and now even Cheol-hoon's real memories were beginning to resurface within him. Now Grandpa slowly began to recall all of Cheol-hoon's memories, and when he remembered how cold and emotionless a life Cheol-hoon had lived with his wife, he began to feel guilty from inside. But now a new problem appeared before him. Because of Cheol-hoon's changed nature, now filled with love and humility, the bank's performance had dropped drastically. Management decided to remove Cheol-hoon and appoint someone new as chairman. But those who once hated him were now all supporting him, because Grandpa had won everyone's hearts. Then Grandpa went back to the office and played Cheol-hoon's favorite song, and the moment he closed his eyes and felt it, within seconds he started to look like the old Cheol-hoon. Then he confidently walked in front of everyone and left the bank, as if he had made a decision. When he went to meet his boss, his old attitude had returned, and his powerful presence shocked even his boss. At the same time, Miran's father-in-law fell critically ill with acute pneumonia. In a hurry, she called Cheol-hoon. When the doctor said a family member needed to sign, Cheol-hoon instantly stepped forward without thinking. In that moment, Miran was completely convinced that this man was truly her husband. Then when Cheol-hoon told his father, "Please take care of yourself, now rest," his father looked at him without any surprise. That's when Grandpa finally revealed his true identity in front of everyone and said, "I'll fix everything quickly and come back to you." But the father refused. "Don't come back now. For the first time, you've been given something in life. You should stay in your new home. If you come back, it will be injustice to this new family." Miran heard this from behind the door. She understood that the father was thinking what's best for his son, but her heart still broke. She asked Grandpa, "Why didn't you accept your identity that day?" Grandpa said, "Now I have the memories of both, my own and Cheol-hoon's. Give me some time. I'll fix everything and return." Miran's anger grew, but she had no answer. At night, Hyejin was silently folding Grandpa's clothes. Just then, his phone rang. The screen read, "Wife calling." Hyejin looked around and saw her own phone was still on the dressing table. She tried to appear calm and picked up the phone. From inside the phone, a voice came. After hearing that voice, Hyejin's face turned pale. She immediately dialed Grandpa's number and saw that in his contact list, Hyejin's name was saved as Goddes. That's when she understood everything, but she said nothing. She quietly put the phone back down as if nothing had happened, but she couldn't sleep the whole night. Her mind kept racing. Is this man even my husband? Maybe he's someone else. But after all these days together, all this love, was it all a lie? Yet Hyejin still wasn't ready to accept this truth. Painful memories tore her heart apart, and in anger, she left the room and went to the hall and stayed curled up in a corner all night. Grandpa couldn't sleep that night either. He kept thinking, is there any path where both families can live without being hurt? But on the other side, Miran had made her decision. Now she would get her husband back no matter what. The next morning, she called Aswai and asked where Grandpa was. She found out he was currently doing a promotional event at Hyejin's supermarket. At that moment, Grandpa's work was about to end, but he noticed something different on Hyejin's face. When he turned around, Miran had arrived too. The moment turned awkward. Both women were standing in front of each other, and there was tension in the air. Miran stepped forward and said, "Today we'll have dinner together." Hyejin didn't back down. She immediately said to Grandpa, "Have lunch with me today." Poor Grandpa got stuck in between, confused and a little nervous. Then a colleague understood the situation and said, "Let's all have lunch together." And so began possibly the most uncomfortable lunch in history. Out of curiosity, a colleague asked, "What is your relationship with both women?" Neither woman gave the other even a moment to speak. Grandpa became anxious and lied, saying he had urgent work at the bank and ran away from there. But as soon as he sat in the car to leave, Hyejin's message arrived. Just as he was about to reply, Miran's message came too. Now Grandpa was completely confused. Both sides had love, guilt, and responsibilities. At home, Miran was cooking her husband's favorite meal and told her father-in-law, "He's coming home for dinner tonight." Meanwhile, Hyejin also told her mother-in-law, "Take the kids with you today. I'll prepare dinner." Both women got ready in their own ways, wore beautiful clothes, did their makeup, and just waited. Grandpa too finally made his decision. First, he went to Hyejin's house. Seeing him, Hyejin's face lit up with happiness. During dinner, she started reminding him of their sweet old memories, but Grandpa saw false hope in her eyes and didn't want her to keep living in a lie. He calmly said, "Cheol-hoon and I now only share memories, that's all." Then he went to Miran's house. Miran was overjoyed. She kept serving him food again and again, but there was no peace on Grandpa's face. The distance between them was clearly felt by the father. The dinner didn't go well. At night, when husband and wife lay on the same bed, Mi-ran realized, even now something is missing between us. Grandpa's cold behavior reminded her of that gap. Meanwhile, Hye-jin, who waited for him every day, became so sad that on a rainy night, she fainted. The son immediately called his dad. And when Grandpa found out, despite Mi-ran's objection, he made his decision. He chose to go to Hye-jin. It was raining. Mi-ran ran across the wet road and cried, saying to Grandpa, "Please don't go." But Grandpa gently let go of her hand, because now his heart had made its decision. He had fallen in love with Hye-jin. In that moment, Mi-ran understood everything. With tears in her eyes, she said herself, Go back to your real home." And just like that, Grandpa followed his heart and started a new life with Hye-jin. But now he was neither just a bank manager named Cheol-hoon, nor only a simple restaurant-owning grandpa. He was a mix of both memories, a new beginning, a new person. He had now become a perfect husband and a loving father too. Everything seemed to be reaching a peaceful ending, but fate had one more twist left. One day, Grandpa and Mi-ran happened to go to the same supermarket for groceries, and they unexpectedly ran into each other. Grandpa insisted, "Come on, I'll drop you home." Mi-ran agreed. When Grandpa went to the parking area to get the car, Mi-ran was waiting outside. Just then, a man bumped into her. Fruits fell to the ground. As Mi-ran bent down to pick them up, suddenly a car came speeding and hit her hard. When Grandpa came running, he saw Mi-ran lying on the ground, covered in blood. At the hospital, doctors tried everything, but they couldn't save Mi-ran. Her death was confirmed. At that same hospital, the underworld angel, and who once felt guilt but now also pain, arrived and met Grandpa. He told him the whole truth, how it was all his fault, how Grandpa's life was mistakenly taken instead of Cheol-hoon's, and how everything had gone wrong. Grandpa made a big decision. He went home, took out a notebook, and wrote down some important things. Then he quietly went into the room, looked at Hye-jin. There was only love in her eyes, but also a quiet sadness inside. He held Hye-jin tightly and gave her a deep, love-filled kiss. At that very moment, the angel used his magic, and time started to reverse. Everything returned to the exact point where everything had first gone wrong. Cheol-hoon once again became the same cold, rude manager. Hye-jin was once again planning a divorce. Grandpa was back in his small restaurant, cooking Chinese food. Everything returned to its original position, but the story still wasn't over. That night, Cheol-hoon had a strange dream. Glimpses of moments from before time reversed. When he woke up, he rushed to his study and opened the same notebook, the one Grandpa had left behind for him earlier. In the notebook, all the events were written up until April, but it was still only March 15th. The next morning, as Cheol-hoon stepped out of the house, he suddenly felt an ominous premonition. And just as he was about to drive to work, vivid memories of that fatal car accident flashed through his mind again. So he chose not to drive to the office that day. At the same time, Grandpa arrived at Shinhwa Bank to apply for a loan, but the clerk found that there was already an active loan under his name. Grandpa was adamant that it wasn't true. When manager Cheol-hoon heard about the situation, he investigated and discovered that the employee who handled that loan had already left the company. Cheol-hoon sensed something fishy going on, so he told Grandpa to return home and wait for results. Back in his office, Cheol-hoon's memories suddenly came rushing back. He remembered everything. The brake failure had caused the car accident, and then Grandpa had come back to life inside Cheol-hoon's body. What Cheol-hoon didn't expect was that even after time had reversed, he still retained all of Grandpa's memories as well as his own. Meanwhile, as Grandpa was back home with Mi-ran, worrying about the loan issue, Mi-ran suddenly received a phone call. It was from bank manager Cheol-hoon. He asked Grandpa to come to the bank and meet him. When the two Cheol-hoons, sharing the same name, finally met face to face, both felt an odd sense of familiarity, as if they somehow knew each other. Cheol-hoon told Grandpa that he would take care of the loan problem and even helped him apply for a wuxi loan. "It's the first time I've seen someone with the exact same name as mine. So fascinating," he said. Not long after, Cheol-hoon quietly visited the small restaurant Grandpa ran. Watching Grandpa's family laugh and live happily, he was struck by the wonder of fate and felt a sudden warmth in his heart. For someone who had always been cold and indifferent, this was a strange, new emotion. He started caring about the people around him, so much so that his family was completely stunned by the change in his attitude. After dinner, he even volunteered to help his wife wash the dishes. "Grandpa, how could you be like this? How are you surprising me like this?" she said, amazed. Cheol-hoon then said he wanted to take Hye-jin for a walk. Under the warmth of his heartfelt confession, Hye-jin's once broken heart slowly began to heal, but she had no idea what this man had really been through. The next day, Cheol-hoon came to Grandpa's house and happened to run into Mi-ran, who was just stepping out to take out the trash. Mi-ran recognized him immediately, yet he was the bank manager, Cheol-hoon, and thanked him sincerely for helping their family get the wuxi loan. She even handed him a small gift. "It's nothing big, just a little thank you." In the end, Yun-chul looks up at the sky and expresses his heartfelt thanks for the miracle he received. He says he will now live happily and return after that. And with this emotional and love-filled story comes to an end.